Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1371B, and today's date is September 5th, 2017, and the title of the episode is The White House Expands Cyber War to Include Banks and Wall Street. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, it looks like Trump and Attorney General Jeff Sessions, they announced that the Dreamer program, well, it's going to be rescinded. And he's saying that the previous administration disrespected the legal process. Basically, what he's saying is that this policy was implemented unilaterally to great controversy and legal concern after Congress rejected legislative proposals to extend similar benefits on numerous occasions to this group of illegal aliens. Basically, what they're saying is that the executive branch, through the DACA, deliberately sought to achieve what the legislative branch specifically refused to authorize on multiple occasions. And basically what they're saying is that, this is no longer going to happen anymore. And I know the media outlets are out there saying, we have to let the dreamers, the children, we need to have them come in. But when you look at this closely, the media outlets are touting polls which supposedly show public support for the DACA amnesty, but careful polls show the public overwhelmingly prefers immigration policies which help their fellow Americans find good jobs. And what they're really saying is that they want the American people to find the jobs first before we give them away to illegal immigrants. And we can see, for example, NBC poll described that 800,000 illegal aliens in the DACA as children, but the average age is 25 years old. So it's really not children. They're bringing in these individuals who are around 25 years old, and this was being done on purpose because, remember, their agenda was to bring in illegals to help with voting, to bring them in to help with Obamacare, to bring them in because they thought they were going to pass the TPP. This was all planned. This is why they were doing this, not just here in the United States, but throughout Europe. And we can see that right now, those plans, they're not happening. Now, we see that the military equipment that Trump and his administration said, okay, we're going to allow law enforcement to once again purchase these military weapons. And we can see that basically a lot of cities, towns, they're all purchasing these type of weapons. Now, some of these weapons, and we've discussed this before under Obama, they are weapons like grenade launchers, bayonets, firearms with ammunition of 50 caliber or higher, M16s. I mean, why in the world does small towns need tanks, M16s, M14s, grenade? What in the world do they need this for? They don't. Unless something is going to happen. Going to be mass riots. The economy is going to break down. They need to control the public. And this is the only reason they would need something like this. And we can see that this is being brought up once again. They're allowing the local police to purchase all this stuff. I mean, think about it. We've been in this country, hundreds and hundreds of years. There was never a reason to have any of this stuff. All of a sudden, the police need it. That's absolutely ridiculous. Now, Putin is warning the United States, the cabal, that, listen, if you're going to sell lethal arms to Ukraine, this is going to make the situation a lot worse in the country. And they're saying that supplying Ukraine with lethal weapons, this is not going to help. It's going to promote war. Well, this is what the cabal wants. They want war in Ukraine. They want war pretty much everywhere. So we can see right now they're not finished just yet. And Putin, China, they all understand what they're trying to do here. They're trying to push their agenda. Now, we had Nikki Haley out there saying that North Korea is begging for war. And they want strict, hard sanctions on North Korea. And, North Korea exploded this H-bomb underground and it caused an earthquake. And Putin is out there with Xi Jinping saying, listen, if we place more sanctions on North Korea, most likely Russia and China will veto the sanctions. They did this before. They vetoed whatever the United States was going to do. They shot them down. They took control. And what they're really doing right now is they're looking to have some type of diplomatic approach to this. They want peace talks. They want all sides to come together. They don't want more and more sanctions where it really doesn't do anything. It just provokes the other country. The other country's not going to give up, testing missiles, testing their nuclear weapons. They're just going to try to basically get those operational so they can protect themselves. We see South Korea's Moon Jae-in. Well, he's kind of stuck because he wants a diplomatic approach, but we can see the cabal with all of this happening, with all these events occurring. They're trying to push him into basically buying more military equipment. They want him to join in with what all the other South Korean presidents did. They want more of the THAAD missile system in South Korea, and they're really pushing this. He is fighting back, but it looks like there's a lot of pressure on him. And we need to put all of this in context. We know that the corporate media is reporting this, and they're telling us that North Korea, yes, they have this H-bomb. It caused a 6.3 magnitude tremor in North Korea. And when you really look at it, and you look at their testing, they've been telling us that North Korea has been testing nuclear weapons, and they've been exploding them. And if we go back in time, all the way back to October 9th of 2006, they tested a 0.5 to 1 kiloton type of nuclear weapon. And if you fast forward to February 12th of 2013, it was a 6 to 9 kiloton nuclear weapon. If you fast forward to September 9th of 2016, it was a 10 kiloton type of weapon. Now, a year later, now think about it, from October 9th, 2006, all the way up to September 9th, 2016, they went from a, say, 1 kiloton nuclear weapon all the way up to a 10 kiloton nuclear weapon. Now, 1 year later, they detonated a 100-plus kiloton nuclear weapon, which caused a 6.3 magnitude tremor. Something doesn't fit here. Something doesn't seem right. Now, to put this into perspective, if we look at the U.S. Trident and the Russian SS ballistic missiles, they have a yield of 455 to 800 kilotons, and they're trying to tell us that North Korea just tested a 100 kiloton weapon, where a year later they tested a 10 kiloton, and all the years previous, going back something like 8 years or so, they went from a 1 to a 10, and it took them a very long time, but in 1 year, they went from 10 to 100. Something doesn't seem right here. Now, I know Trump is out there, and he is saying, listen, we're going to stop trade with all countries that do business with North Korea, China, and the rest. Now, once again, we need to understand that the United States is very dependent on China. Because if he goes forward with this, guess what? It's going to hurt the United States. Because when we look at this, we can see that China is North Korea's largest trading partner. And Trump's talk of cutting off trade was clearly aimed at China. But China is also the largest trading partner with the U.S., and nearly $650 billion in goods and services are traded between the two nations. And we can see if trading stops, remember, China is the manufacturing company, guess what's going to happen here to the United States? We're not going to be able to get parts. The store shelves are going to go empty, and the United States is going to get hit because the United States is dependent on China. It's not the other way around. We need their goods because if we don't receive their goods, the shelves are empty. The service economy, well, it breaks down. Yes, it will affect China because they'll have nowhere to place these goods, and maybe they'll start shipping them off to other countries. But it's going to really hit the United States because if the service industry, where people are purchasing things, goes down the tubes, guess what? There's going to be a huge problem here. We see that the Syrian army, they have broken the ISIS siege in Deir ez-Zor, and they are making huge gains in this area. And it looks like the Al-Qaeda faction, the Islamic State faction, the rest of the moderate rebels, they are in big trouble now. And it looks like it's only a matter of time before Russia and Syria completely take over the country, and there's no reason for the United States to be in there. And I think this is why the cabal is working so hard to create some type of an event or war. Now, what's very interesting about all of this, and we discussed this many, many times before, where we had this Grid X4 cyber war exercise where they were testing the power grid, they were testing everything, but the White House expanded the power grid war, and they are including the big banks, Wall Street, and the telecommunications industry now. And what they're saying is that, and this is coming from the cybersecurity coordinator, Rob Joyce, saying that they need to include all of this because the electricity sector goes far beyond the power grid. They're saying that the financial sector, the communication sector, well, this needs to be included in these tests. Now, we've talked about this before. We know there's a kill switch on the BAT system, on the NASDAQ, and on the stock exchange. So if something starts to happen where the market comes down, they can kill basically all trading with a flip of the switch. If the banks are hit, basically they can go on bank holiday. Now they're including all this in their testing. And we know eventually there's going to be some type of an event because they're going to need to explain why the economy is not doing well. And they need to make it look really, really good. And they've been testing this for quite a while. And I do believe back in 2003, when the Eastern Seaboard, when they lost power, I believe this was a test to see if they can bring down the power grid. Just like years before, they tested bringing down the towers where they exploded something in the basement. Then they had to change their tactics and put explosives on each floor and bring the building down. And we can see right now that they are making preparations for some type of cyber scenario where they can say North Korea, or it's probably going to be North Korea or China, or maybe even Russia, and they might even go that far, where they actually hit the financial institutions, because it's very easy for them to report this on the corporate media because they really don't need to show proof, and they really like doing things where they can use propaganda and they don't have to show that much proof. And if we go back to Sony Pictures, they just blamed it right on North Korea. Did they show any proof? No, they just told you that yes, it was North Korea. They didn't have to show anything. And once again, they're including Wall Street. They're including the telecommunications. This handles all the communications and transactions that go back and forth. They're talking about the banks because they know eventually what's going to happen. And we know from Janet Napolitano, when she was head of DHS, she said it's not if, but when there is a cyber attack. And we can see that they've been prepping for this for a very long time. And we know within the systems, there's already software, because we know the CIA has the ability to do this now from Grid 7 and all of this. They have the software, the malware, just sitting there waiting and ready. And we can see that once this agenda, this event moves forward, guess what? They'll be able to explain why this is happening. And they can explain away why the economy's not doing well. It's because of this country, and they'll have their entire excuse. And basically, this is where we are headed, because you can see right now, they have expanded their cyber test. They're telling you that now the banks, the entire Wall Street operation, the communications, it's all part of it. And this basically is telling us that they are getting prepared, and they're just maybe one step away from having this event. You can see how they're pushing their agenda in North Korea. They're pushing it very hard. They're trying to convince the world that we need to go in there. We need to stop them. And they're talking about war. They're talking about Kim Jong-un doing something. They're saying he's getting ready to maybe hit the United States, maybe use an EMP, maybe do something. And we can see that they are really pushing their agenda very, very hard right now because they have nothing left. And they know the system's falling apart. And this is why they've been pushing so hard. This is why we've been telling everyone to get ready and prepared. And we can see that everything is coming full circle right now. Everything that we talked about, everything that we discussed, we can see that we're coming to this point where it's either nothing happens, or they bring us to war. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.